Welcome back to the channel, guys. Or if you're new, welcome. Hit that subscribe button on your way in. In today's video, I'm going to be letting you guys know 5 things that I love about my Omega Constellation 168.005, otherwise known as or nicknamed the Connie. So guys, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into this video. So before I get into the video, guys, quick PSA. For any of you guys out there, Omega collectors or just watch collectors in general, if any of you guys have an OEM Omega Constellation crystal, that's the one with the Omega logo in the center, guys, reach out to me because I'm in the market for one.
For the price of on the house.
Whether it's free or for a great price, just reach out to me down in the comment section or on my Instagram, watch Clyde. But now let's sit down and talk about the 5 points that make me love my Omega Constellation. So guys, let's talk about it. Number 1, the first thing that I love about my Omega Constellation and constellations in general are the dials. As you guys can see at a close-up, the pie pan dial is a unique design that Omega made. Now, most brands, most watchmakers, most watches that you see have flat dials. That's so basic. Along the years, especially in collecting, I've come across a lot of watches. I've gravitated and moved towards different parts of the watches that, appeals to me or draws my attention. And right now, especially in the past few years, dials have been the thing that caught my attention, whether it's the color or design of the overall dial. Now, Omega designed this pie pan dial, and you guys, I think, could see why they call it the pie pan dial, just because of the shape. It almost has the shape of the bottom of a pie pan. This timepiece that I have on my wrist is in the mid to late 60s, but I believe the first pie pan they designed was in the late 50s. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, get in the comment section. But the dial overall is the first thing that caught my attention when it came to the Constellation. And for those of you who aren't really big into vintage timepieces, guess what? Omega designed a pie pan dial for you too.
He ain't lying. I'm
gonna put up on the screen the Omega Globemaster, which is a modern Omega timepiece, which has the pie pan dial. So there's no excuse, guys. If you want a pie pan dial, if you guys think it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's a well-designed dial, trust me, check out the Globemaster. You guys can go to, I guess, any Omega AD and they'll have it in stock to look at, so you guys can actually see the beauty in the pie pan dial. Also, guys, you could go check out a vintage Omega Constellation and actually see the beauty in the pie pan dial with the domed acrylic crystal. I believe the combination of the pie pan dial and the domed acrylic crystal just makes it perfect. It just gives the timepiece a lot of depth when you look at the face of it. It's hard to explain. You just need to have one in front of you so that you could totally understand what I'm talking about. Number 2, the second point that I love about this timepiece is the size. Now, the case size is a 34 millimeter. That's like the number 1 focus size that when you mention a timepiece from left to right, that's what they're mentioning. So it's either like 36 or 40 millimeter or 42. That's what I'm talking about right now. So it's 34 millimeters from left to right, not including the crown. To me, I appreciate a 34 millimeter size case to 36. I'll go all the way up to 40. You guys know in my previous videos, I've talked about watch sizes and the ones that appeal to me, especially in the vintage market. They mostly make, smaller sizes, especially back then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So this case size is perfect for me at a 34 millimeter size. Now let's talk about the lug to lug. That's from top to bottom. The lug to lug for this Omega Constellation is 42 millimeters, which is pretty big. That's a decent size lug to lug from top to bottom. And I've mentioned to you guys that the lug to lug is probably the most important measurement on the timepiece, because that's the point from where it could go over the wrist and make the watch look oversized. So the lug to lug from the top to the bottom of your wrist, I believe, is way more important than the left to right. I believe there should be a good ratio from case, including the lugs, to bracelet. I appreciate seeing a good portion of my bracelet or my strap, whether it's a leather strap, a NATO strap, it doesn't matter, suede. I need a good balance between case and bracelet or strap. Some people, guys, enjoy seeing just the face of the watch when they look from, their POV. But for me, I need to see some bracelet and strap, maybe even more strap and bracelet than the case than the case of the watch. Guys, comment down below and let me know if you guys are on the same page with me. I just appreciate a small case or a decent sized case in comparison with my wrist. Some people who have a bigger wrist can, pull off maybe a 38 or a 40 and have a lot of bracelet still to show. But for my wrist, a 7-inch wrist, I do appreciate, a decent lug to lug, which 42 is perfect, and case size from left to right of 34. Now, between the lugs, it's a 18 millimeter size, which is not the best size when it comes to finding straps, but there are straps out there. There's a lot of manufacturers, John Russo, that makes straps. You can have custom straps made by them that, is perfect for a 18 millimeter size lug width. Now, my third point in the list of things that I enjoy and love about the Omega Constellation is the affordability. Now, you could get this timepiece, specifically, let's just talk about the one on my wrist, which is, the case and the original beads of rice bracelet. You could get it between the price of $2,000 to $3,000. Guys, of course, you can get it for more or less. Less if you compromise condition, more, of course, if the condition is just perfect, where it's like new old stock, like the person just had it stored away. It comes with the box, the papers, there's your certificate, stuff like that. But for something like this, on average, it's around $2,000 to $3,000. And of course, also price is based on the specific spec. So on this timepiece, of course, having the pie pan dial, you could also get the option with the non-pie pan dial, which will be less. There's other parts too where the hands and the hour markers does affect the price. So this coming with, of course, everything correct, with the correct dial matching the hands, the black onyx inlay in the hour markers and the hour hands, just makes it the perfect Omega Constellation to me. Another aspect you need to look at to make sure that you're paying the right price, because they are affordable, well, to me at least, is making sure that the dial isn't refinished. So, putting a loop to it, or just, having 20/20 vision and having it up close, you could actually see whether or not some of the font is different. And a refinished dial, sometimes it's a deal breaker, especially for me. I would go for something maybe refinished a little bit, but it needs to be close to at least the perfect, the spec font that came from the manufacturer. And of course, the price needs to reflect a refinished dial. Okay, guys, number 4. The fourth reason why I love this Omega Constellation, and specifically this vintage Omega Constellation, is because there aren't many replicas out there. Now, you guys know I'm a lover of Rolex, whether it's vintage or neo-vintage Rolex. There's a lot of fakes. And matter of fact, in the new spectrum, the modern, the super fakes are getting too good. I don't enjoy wearing a timepiece where somebody's gonna look at you. They already know Rolex is expensive, and they're just gonna look at you and judge you and say, oh, there's a chance he's wearing a fake. He's wearing a fake. They hate on you or whatever the case may be. And I don't like that. I don't want someone to be able to look at my timepiece, look at me, and have a hint of like, hey, he's wearing a fake watch, or could joke about it. This Omega Constellation back then, in the late 50s and 60s, guys, they weren't that expensive. Yes, this was Omega's flagship models, but at the same time, it wasn't really considered high luxury expensive. It was affordable. So people who were trying to fake or create replicas, it doesn't make sense back then to make, fake Omega Constellations to really make a profit. If they made a fake, it was probably going to be so noticeable that it's a fake that anyone, even if you're not even a watch person, could say that's a fake watch. The only thing with this timepiece and most vintage timepieces you need to look out for is aftermarket parts or interchangeable parts. So let's say it's an Omega part, it's OEM Omega, let's say an Omega dial or crown, but just not correct to that specific model or reference. And another thing too is looking out for missing parts. So especially with a timepiece like this, that's maybe over 70 years old, it could be 50, 40 years old. That timepiece most likely has been opened up, and you don't know if it was opened up from around the mill, just basic watchmaker who, sketchy, I guess, who maybe overhauled the timepiece and maybe he missed a screw and just put the timepiece back together. You never know. So when it comes to these timepieces, all I advise you to do is make sure it's opened up and looked over from a watchmaker, a specialist that knows what he's looking for to identify whether or not everything is correct in the timepiece. Now guys, my fifth and final point is Omega's history and the Omega Constellation's history. When it comes to brands, it's important to look at the history, the historical data or information that's out there behind certain models especially. And the Constellation, I believe, has a strong foundation of history behind it. The first Omega Constellation was designed in, I believe, 1952. That was the first one. And of course, it evolved and grew into different forms and designs. And I also believe Gerald Genta designed the C-shaped case Omega Constellation. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see. Gerald Genta is the designer of the Nautilus and also the Royal Oak. So if he's part of teams like that in designing, those timepieces, hey, he's on Omega too. So put that on your list of things to like about Omega, because they've had great designers and engineers over there designing their timepieces. Now, let me go back to the beginning where, guys, Omega was founded as a company in the early 1900s. That's a long time they've been in the market designing timepieces. I don't think you guys understand how many other timepieces out there that has tried to stay up to date and stay relevant and just hasn't made it. Omega is really up there when it comes to Rolex, AP, IWC. Those are brands that people know. So when you hear someone mention Omega, guys, there's certain models that goes in line. That's the Omega Speedmaster. The Omega Speedmaster was chosen by NASA as the first watch to go to space. So if NASA could acknowledge and see that Omega designed timepieces where its quality and the innovation behind it is up to their standards, guys, you have to put that there as one of the important brands out there. Of course, NASA could have chose Rolex. Rolex, made the Daytona, but the Daytona couldn't cut it. So guys, consider that when considering an Omega, just an Omega in general as a brand, not just the Constellation. But if we're talking about the Constellation itself has won awards and made so many achievements. And Omega put as a symbol 8 stars representing their accomplishments in timekeeping and in just the overall industry of, chronometer making timepieces. And another fact that I believe some of you guys do know is that the name Omega is the last letter in the Greek alphabet.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
Which symbolizes perfection and accomplishments. So guys, Omega and the Constellation as just that model is one to be respected and to acknowledge all the accomplishments that they have made. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Guys, give the video a thumbs up, like the video, because that helps the video get out to more people. Hit that subscribe button, and guys, stay tuned for the next video.